Well, good evening. It's Monday and time for Monday Mastery. I'm author and dating coach Rick Sodabeer, and I'm here to help you navigate through the realm of dating, answering your dating and relationship questions. And I work primarily with midlife singles, and I define midlife singles as those that are 40 years 40 years old and older and have been are married or divorced and were married for 20 to maybe even 40 years and then find yourself single again and back in the world of dating. And consequently there's a lot of things that have changed over the last 25 years. And getting back into the world of dating or the realm of dating can be a bit challenging. And it can be challenging for those of you that have been divorced or widowed for a number of years. I I seem to find I guess there's for to word it in a sports term, there's a sweet spot, I think, in the first 2 to 5 or maybe 7 years of being single or divorced or widowed. And then usually one of two things happens, and it's usually the latter. You continue to date and keep working at it, or you get frustrated and throw up your hands and say, screw it, I'm done. And I'm finding more and more that that's the attitude of daters today. And a recent study showed that oh, over 67% of folks over 50 that are single will remain single for the rest of their lives. And I find that heartbreaking because there are so many great people out there, and I understand the frustration, but I think there are some misconceptions when we get back into dating, that it's going to be as easy as it was when we were in high school or college. Because a lot of us, face it, a lot of us connected to our significant others, to our spouses, when we were as early as high school, and some of it, quite and more connected in college and then shortly after college. But it's become so prevalent that people just give up. They don't understand, they don't recognize the changes and the effort that it does take to find an extraordinary mate. And there are a few of you out there, and God love you, that you were with your soulmate, and those are typically the widows or widowers, uh, so your spouse has set a high bar for you to find a new relationship, and that's okay, because that's what I'm here to help you do also, is to set a high bar. Be, Most of the divorces, I'm convinced today, most divorces. When I was a financial advisor, take a quick step back. Uh, when I was a financial advisor, I looked at divorce. The primary reason for divorce was money problems, money issues, money differences, how you handle money. And what I've actually come to find out, it's just not not finding the right partner to begin with. Since I've been a coach for more than 10 years, it's it's uh, it's become quite apparent that we settle for less than everything we want, or we think we have a great person, yet there are aspects of that relationship that just don't meet our needs. And one of the things that I try to get people to focus on is paying attention to what are your values? What values do you want in a partner? And that's part of what today's conversation is about is, is your heart open to a new partner? And part of the process that I go through is, number one, making sure that you're emotionally healthy and that your potential partner is emotionally healthy. There are in my geez, what is it? It's 14 years. I've been divorced 14 years. And in that time, I've dated a lot of people that have not been emotionally ready to date. And it doesn't mean that they were terrible people. It's just they weren't ready. And I find this most often with with widows. They 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 start dating way too soon. And I also find it with divorcees that went through a very rough divorce, yet they want to get back into a relationship, but they haven't been able to navigate the world of emotions and letting those things go. So the question today is your heart open to a new relationship? Is it or has the door been slammed shut on it? And for those of you that are out there, pop in the chats and say hi, tell me where you're from, and we'll start the conversation off. And if you have questions, part of my role here and part of what I love to do is to answer your questions. If you've got a dating or relationship question, pop it in the chat. Let's talk about it. Those that's what I live for. I live for helping you look at things possibly from a different perspective. And the perspective I have is that let's not waste time dating people that aren't right for us. Let's get a clear picture of who we want in our lives, and what kind of relationship we want this next time around. We can, one of the things that and I don't care, the dating industry norm is that you can't have everything you want. And I strongly disagree with that, because I've interviewed hundreds of couples that have literally told me the same thing, that in their soulmate relationship, their partner has brought more to the table than they ever could have imagined. And that's why it's important to have a clear vision of what you want and even a detailed vision of what your next relationship should be, or what it should look like, what you want in that relationship. Because when you settle, it may be okay for the first few years, but somewhere down the road, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, there's going to be something there. There's going to be uh, an irritation, just something that just makes you crazy, and it's going to be a disappointment. You're going to look back and say, "Oh, I wish I would have waited. I wish I wouldn't have settled." And I hear this and I see this literally daily when I'm talking to clients and people that are just having problems with their relationships. I've got friends that have been married for a long, long time, but are very, very disappointed in their marriage, or in their long-term relationship. They were in love at one point, but that love has faded because there have been so many other issues. There's been an unresponsive spouse. And when I say unresponsive, it could be, uh, you know, it can be as simple as just wanting to snuggle up on the couch. And when you get rebuffed enough times, you just, it starts building a wall between you and your partner. So there are so many aspects of relationships, so many moving parts, as I call it, that it's important to pay attention when we're dating. And you don't have to go on endless first dates. It's not an endless cycle one bad date after another. If you know what you're looking for, you can very clearly define early on who may be eligible, or of interest to you, and who isn't. Um, Now, and I'm going to pop back to the question here because we've got a few people online. Uh, is your heart open to for someone new to enter your life? Are you open to the idea of dating again, or if you are dating, uh, what is what has your experience been? Have you had frustrations? Have you had successes? We all talk about the frustrations and the terrible first dates, or the how horribly a relationship ends. But I also know that there are some great stories out there, some successes, and people that have connected. And it may not have been with a soulmate. I know personally that I have met several wonderful women over the years that I'll remain friends with for the rest of my life. Do we stay in touch? No. I mean, and on a regular basis? No. But every once in a while we'll check in with each other and see how each of us is doing, and move on from there. And it's what some friends do. We don't have to be in each other's lives every day. And now there are going to be people that we date that forever, for whatever length of time, however long or however short, that you just really need to remove from your life completely, because they're going to be an agitator, an irritant, and maybe there was a lot of infatuation or raging hormones to begin with, and you had these wild eyes for each other, and and after some of the emotions settle down, and you start to look at your partner, or they start to look at you with an eye of, ooh, this really isn't working for me. And then it's time to part ways. And some of the endings to relationships can be, pretty gnarly. There can be some pretty serious carnage after the end of some of these relationships. Hopefully as a midlife single, that we recognize that we don't let our emotions get try not to let our emotions get the best of us. But sometimes they do. And sometimes one person is just going to poke the other. It's just, as we used to say with my daughter, we used to if she was in a bad mood, it was, don't poke the bear. Don't do anything to annoy them, don't or to annoy her. Don't get her upset. So we have to watch for those. But those are also relationships that you can quickly see, that, or hopefully quickly recognize, are not the values, the characteristics, the traits that you're truly looking for in a relationship. And it's okay to say, yeah, this just isn't working for me. Yeah, I have different values. I have different ideals. There are things that are missing in the relationship. I'm just not feeling the connection. And it can be that simple to end relationships like that. So there's a few of you who out there is still looking, and is interested in looking, and still has an open heart for a new relationship. And just post it in the chat on the side box here, and depending on where you're tuning in from, because we're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, and we're on YouTube all at the same time through the amazing technology that we have today. But anyway, I digress. And relationships, again, as I stated earlier, we have to be mentally prepared for dating. If we've just if you're recently widowed, uh, it's you're not. I can tell you hands down, you're not emotionally ready. And men are worse at this than. Hey, Donna, thanks for joining in. And Donna says, let me just pop this up here real quick. Donna says, I'm open to someone new. Awesome. And, and where was I? I just lost my train of thought. That's one of those senior moments, I guess. And anyway, being open, being emotionally prepared. Men are some of the worst at this. And they tend to, hey Suzanne, thanks for joining in. And Suzanne says cautiously open. And that's still good. You're still open to the possibilities. And we should all be cautious, I think. But this is where men tend to jump the gun. They tend to not deal with as many of their emotions as women do. And while it's part of our DNA to push through and move on, there are certain things that we as men need to handle. We need to deal with. We need to deal with the loss. We need to deal with, what did we do? What were our flaws, and what were the things that went wrong in our relationship, and how can I be better? Hey, Meredith, thanks for joining in. And Meredith says she's wondering and open. And awesome. Tell me about wondering. Are, I'm going to pop you up here real quick. And Meredith says wondering and open. And wondering if there's a relationship out there for you, or um, if you can just pop in the chat box what wondering means to you. And so when you don't take care of when you're not taking care of those emotions, it's baggage that follows you around from relationship to relationship. And I've worked with folks that are serial monogamous. They'll jump from one relationship to the next, and without taking time to take care of those emotions, because we all have them. When a relationship ends, it's never easy, it's never fun. Even if you're the one doing the breaking up, you're breaking up for a reason, or you're leaving a relationship for a reason. And if we don't deal with that stuff up front, we're dragging that stuff into the next relationship, and the next, and the next. And Meredith says, in relation to wondering, says if there will be, uh, if there will be, what envision out there. Um, eh, I'm assuming that you're wondering what a possible relationship, a new relationship would look like. Am I understanding that correctly, Meredith? And if that's correct, you can set the vision if if that's what in fact what you're wondering. Yeah, okay, yeah, she says yes. And then and here's let me just dive into a little teaching right now. And I generally try not to be too teachy, but and I'll do this for Meredith, and I'll do it for everybody else. And this is a great exercise, because we have in our next in the next relationship we want, we have the ability to choose what we want that relationship to look like. This is not a, and it should not be a crapshoot or a roll of the dice to see what happens. You should have a clear vision of what your next relationship looks like. You know, what are the values that you want your next relationship that you want in your next partner? You know, do you want him, and it, you know, the values can be, you know, whatever is important to you. You know, it can be, you know, it can be looks, it can be health, it can be finances, it can be um being willing to snuggle on the couch and watch a movie. It could be just being quiet. It could be cooking in the kitchen together. And I don't necessarily mean preparing a meal, you know, and then the way I like to phrase it is we can dance. And for me, it's important to be able to dance in the kitchen. And I'm not, and here I'm not talking about, you know, dancing, you know, cheek to cheek in the kitchen, listening to a good song. What I'm referring to is being able to move in the kitchen without stumbling over each other or getting in each other's way. You know, and that's the one thing I have to say about my ex and I is we could dance in the kitchen. You know, we could move around each other and you know, we had a good relationship that way. There was a lot of other problems though. And so, you know, what is your vision? What are the things that you want? So one of the things that I ask all my clients to do, and I share this with virtually everybody that's interested, is that to create your must-have list. This way, as you're dating, you have a clear understanding of what you're looking for. And these your must-have list must be written in a positive format, and your must-have list is a list of non-negotiable characteristics. And this is really important that it is non-negotiable. If it's a would be nice to have, then it belongs on a different list. You know, the non, you know, an example of a would be nice to have, for most of us, uh, having somebody that earns $1 million a year or more, you know, that would be nice to have. There are going to be a few people that, hey, Suzanne, thanks for joining or popping in there. Oh, you were, never mind. I'm just, this one I've got to share. This one I've got to share. Suzanne says, Pat the cook's buns. Well, you know, and that's, you know, I've been in relationships that if I get too close in the kitchen or try to snuggle up behind her, it was like, no, stay away, don't touch me. I'm, you know, I'm washing dishes or whatever it was. So you know, and those are important things to if that's important to you, Suzanne, that needs to be on your list. You know, as somebody that will show some physical affection. And you know, and that kind of leads into the 5 love languages. I truly believe that if you want an extraordinary relationship, you need to have you need to be able to speak similar love languages. And hey, Kathy, thanks for joining in. And Kathy says, dating at this age and finding a Christ-centered partner is difficult. Well, yeah, it is. I agree. And the question I'll pose to you is, what in life that is worthwhile isn't difficult? And so we have to, you know, and I'm not, Kathy, I'm not trying to tell you or anyone in any way, shape, or form that dating can be easy. It can be simple, but rarely is it easy because it takes effort. And what I have found in the last 10 years as a coach is fewer and fewer people want to put in the effort necessary. You know, the average person that I talk to dates has maybe 4 to 6 dates in 12 months. And that's, in my opinion, probably not enough to find the person of your dreams, because the odds of it being in the first 4 or 5 people that you're dating, uh, just the odds just aren't there. Now, does it mean that you have to go on endless, monotonous first dates? No. Um, and Kathy says, agree. All worthwhile takes time. Yes, it does. And getting back to the must-have list, when you have your must-have list, you can start narrowing down who you'll date. If you're scrolling through uh, an online on an online site, it you can very quickly narrow down who you'd even consider talking to. And there are going to be some profiles that are just going to catch your eye, whether it's looks or what something they're doing that you enjoy doing, whether it's bicycling, sailing, skiing, gardening, cooking. you know if they have pictures that interest you, or traveling is another big one. uh, if they may have a great profile that presents itself very well, but if in their uh, in their essay, and I call them essays because most profiles that are worth reviewing do have a short essay. They should have a good profile should have a short paragraph about who you are, and then a very short paragraph of who you're looking for. And one of the things to me is that's and almost an instant deal breaker is if they don't have anything filled in the essay part. I because just a few questions that you answer, yeah, that's not enough for me to know, and I'm not going to waste. And we can pass by hundreds of profiles, and many of those may be great people, great prospects, but you don't know because their profile is so poorly put together. But and I keep jumping all over. I'm sorry, folks. Um, because there are so many great, the comments that are coming in tonight are really good, and pulling me off in a variety of different directions. But getting back to the must-have list, and it doesn't make any difference how long your list is. One of my dearest friends has a list that has 5 items, just five. Mine, on the other hand, has 35. And they're not big things. They're just little things that are important to me. It's sometimes, and it's all based on my experience, based on my dating, based on my ex-wife, based on my marriage. And I look for things that not only are different than what my ex-wife was, but I look for specific things in a relationship. I look for somebody that has some similar interests. All our interests are not going to be the same because we're all different. But I hope to be able to share some of my interests with her, and her share some of her interests with me. But there are some fundamental things that I want. I want to develop an intellectual, a spiritual, an emotional, and a physical connection with in my next relationship. And that's part of what your must-have list will do. It's kind of it kind of becomes the gatekeeper of who you're going to date. When you start meeting people, you can very quickly ascertain whether they are going to have many of the characteristics that you're looking for. Some of you, if you're under 50, or maybe under 55 or so, or under 60, you may still have kids at home, high school or college age. And is dating somebody that has kids at home, is that a deal breaker for you, or is that something that's okay? uh, one of my must-haves is if they're divorced, that they must be divorced for at least a year, because it takes at least a year to get through the fog of and the emotional turmoil of ending a marriage. And there's a lot of financial crap that comes along with that, and and it just doesn't all resolve itself when the judge signs the divorce decree. It just we most of us are ready to jump back into the world of dating and start trying to find somebody new to be with. When I got my divorce, I thought 9 months max, I'll be with my soulmate. Well, here I am 14 years later. Now the last 6 years have been a little iffy as far as my dating efforts have been concerned because of my travel. It's, I have some flexibility in my life, and for those of you that are new here, I am, right now I'm in northern Michigan, upper Michigan, and preparing to spend my summer up here. Uh, Unfortunately, I spent the winter here too, but that's another story. But I like to spend winters in warmer weather, and not everybody wants to do that. So that limits some of the participation. And not everybody wants to travel. There are a lot of you out there that just want to stay close to home. A vacation, going away for a week or 2 weeks is fine, but other than that, let's stay around the house or stay in the neighborhood, and that's okay. Everybody has their own personal preferences, and it's a matter of finding people that fit into our lives, and at this age we start to have routines, and we have to be very careful about these routines, that we don't get too set into our routines, that we intentionally or unintentionally chase away some very good potential prospects, or some very good potential partners. Dating is a bit of a give and take. It's learning about your partner. It's learning what they like, what they don't like, and the same should be uh, said for them. They should be learning about you and what you like and what you don't like. And it's all about using your must-have list, and the deal breaker list is, excuse me, very similar to your must-have list, but it should be very short. If you have a deal breaker list that's more than 4 or 5 items long, you need to take a look at that list and see if you can flip some of those deal breakers around to must-haves. And the examples I typically use are going to be, if you're looking for somebody that's that doesn't smoke, you don't want to put on your must-have list, or on your deal. Well, you can put it either place, but rather than saying you're looking for somebody that's not a smoker, the minute I say, not a non-smoker, what is the picture that comes to your mind? It's usually the picture of somebody that's smoking. And so the way I word that is must be smoke free. And so that becomes a positive, that becomes a must-have. And I had dated a girl for about a week, or a woman, I should say, a very lovely woman, and we got along famously. And I went through my list, and I got to the last one, which was must be smoke free. She looked at me and said, "What kind of smoke?" And we instantly knew. Next. And I mean, we both recognized it, and we moved on, and we're still friends, but it was just one of those things. So when you phrase them in a positive manner, you're more likely going to attract the types of characteristics or the traits or the values that you're looking for. And so it has to be, or I strongly encourage you to write it in the positive. Must be smoke free, must be Um, oh, just whatever it is, must be able to dance in the kitchen, must keep a neat and clean house, must be a partner, must be supportive of me, must have goals, must, whatever, must be financially stable, um, must be a good dancer, uh, whatever it is that you find important. And Donna says, did you share your list with her? I absolutely did. Yeah. And we had dated for about a week, and we were talking about and the way the conversation came up, we were talking about what we want in our next relationship, or, how we wanted our next relationship to look. And I have that conversation with almost everyone I date, and I encourage you to have the same conversation. That way you can start discovering early on whether somebody appears to be a good fit or not. And it doesn't, just because they may not be a good fit, doesn't mean that they're a bad person. It just means that they're not a good match for you. And the whole idea is to find somebody that's a good fit, a good match for you. And now, even and I contend that if you're using your must-have list and your deal breaker list, those are just the standards, the basics. It's the gatekeeper of people you're willing to date. And you're not going to, depending on your list and how long it is, you're not going to know all of those details in the first 30 minutes of talking to somebody. It but in my experience, within the first 30 days of dating somebody, you'll know. And there may be some surprises, and in that first 30 days you'll be able to determine whether somebody is worth pursuing further or not. And sometimes you'll learn that within the first the first date, the first couple of dates, the first couple of weeks. But by the end of 30 days you should have a pretty good idea of whether somebody is worth pursuing further or not. If there seems to be enough in common, if you can have good conversations that sometimes last for hours. And not everybody's a talker, and so for all of you that's not going to be important. But when you find yourself having a conversation and lose track of time, that's a pretty good indication that there might be some sort of connection there, at least intellectually. So it's these are some of the first steps that you need to take when you're getting back into the realm of dating. You need to take care of your mental health, and you need to make sure that whoever you're dating is mentally healthy, because the last thing you want to do is start getting attached to someone that is not in the least bit ready to date emotionally. And they may be perfectly fine. I mean, there's no outbreaks, but if especially for widows, I find that it takes 4 to 5 years to get to a point where you're really ready to start dating. Because the first year, for widows anyway, it's the first year is basically a fog. You're just trying to maneuver one day to the next, and just trying to figure out how to survive and get through the day. Then as that fog lifts, then you can start making some decisions. And even years ago, as a financial advisor, I always encouraged my clients that became widows or widowers that they just don't do anything financially for the next year. I mean, pay their bills and whatnot, but don't make any major financial decisions for that year. And and that goes for everything else. Um, because I've had so many people come to me back in those days that said, "Oh, I wish I wouldn't have paid off my house. I could have done things differently." But and in the moment, in the heat of the moment, they made those decisions, and they came back to regret it. And the same thing happens with dating and relationships. You don't want to start dating, at least not seriously. If you want to go out for dinner with somebody, great, but don't get involved emotionally, because it's only going to be a problem because you haven't processed the letting go part. It's and I know from experience that if you start dating too quickly, you can. And when you're dating a widow or widower, if they're still wearing their wedding ring, they're not emotionally ready. They're not emotionally available for you. If they haven't gotten rid of their spouse's tools or gone through their wife's closet, or you know they're not emotionally ready yet. See, these are all things that take time. I just look at myself from inheriting some property up here, that it took me about 5 years to get to a place mentally where I could let some of my dad's things go. They had a lot of emotional value for me, and now, yeah, not so much. So we have to pay attention to those types of things, and and you'll start to recognize, and the same thing applies to if you went through a rough divorce. You'll start to recognize there's a time, assuming you don't hang on to the anger and the hurt that your ex was vicious, mean, nasty. Not everybody is going to be your ex. And you have to look at that relationship. You were part of that relationship, you were part of that choice. uh, Very rarely is it the case that you're forced into a relationship, and consequently you have some responsibility in what happens. Now, if you didn't, and this is some of the tough love, I guess, that if you weren't paying attention, if you thought that you could change him or change her, or you could live with something that you didn't like, yeah, that rarely, if ever, works. You know, and I can go back to the first 30 days that I dated my ex, and I saw red flags and I ignored them. We all ignore them in the because of the raging hormones of infatuation. And pretty soon, you get attached to somebody emotionally, and you invested a year, 2 years, 5 years, and it's like, oh crap, I don't want to let this go because I've invested so much time in this relationship. There's a shame factor in letting that go. There's a fear factor of, well, what if I don't find anybody better? Well, if you're not happy in this relationship, it's not going to get any better. They're not going to change. The only one that can change is you. And so, when you get to a when you're going through the dating process, don't prolong hanging on to a relationship that you already know is not the right relationship. If you're open to dating, don't don't screw up your dating future by trying to find a relationship too quickly. If it doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. You may grow into it. There may be some aspects of it that you'll grow into, but overall, if you're not hanging if you're not hanging out or hanging around, for all the right reasons, then you're there for the wrong reasons. And it's nice to have it's nice to have company. It's nice to have someone to come home to or to talk to at night, or to have dinner with, or whatever it is, or go out for coffee with, or go do something with on the weekends. But if they're not the right person, there's no point in hanging around, because you're going to start developing connections, emotions, uh, and it becomes much harder to walk away. And in the meantime, you're likely to come into or come in contact with somebody that is outstanding, but you can't do anything about it because you're attached to somebody else. you're not physically and emotionally available to explore a relationship with somebody that could be your soulmate. So it's critically important to pay attention. And again, going back to the original subject, it's so important to have an open heart. And it's scary. If you've been hurt in the past, it's scary to be the for the thought that you could be hurt again. And nobody wants to go through that. But unless you are vulnerable enough to put yourself in that position, odds are you're never going to find your soulmate, because what you're doing is you build up walls. And we build up walls to protect our heart, but you have to remember it's those same walls that are designed to keep everybody out, and that includes the love that you're looking for. So you have to be very careful uh, about building up walls that are too thick and too tall. You have to be able to tear those walls down yourself. And it does mean being vulnerable. And until you're willing to be vulnerable, it becomes difficult to really connect with people, to really connect deeply. Now, if you're using your must-have and your deal breaker list correctly, you should be able to avoid most of the heartache that comes with dating the wrong people. Because if you're using your must-have list, and then there are other aspects that I teach through my book Dating Backward, or my my online course Dating Made Simple Academy, or even one-on-one coaching. There are systems, there are processes that I teach to help you stay focused on what it is you're looking for, and how to exit quickly relationships that that are not right for you. And it's nice, ladies, and I find this especially from you all, that when you get into a relationship, you're going to give it your all. You're going to give it 110%, and you're not going to let go until you're mentally um, assured that you've done everything you can to make that relationship work. And that's probably one of the worst things you can do, because you already know deep in your soul that that's not the right relationship for you. But you don't want to walk out, you don't want to give up. You don't you know it's a process of hanging on till the very end, and until you just can't take anymore. And I teach just the opposite. If you start to see red flags, if you start to recognize that whoever you're seeing doesn't have all of your must-haves, it's time to move on. Because if you stick around in a relationship like that, you're settling. You're settling for less than extraordinary. And the whole idea of finding your next relationship is to find your soulmate, or to find an extraordinary mate. And like I said earlier, if you're with your soulmate, and the couples that I've interviewed have, and they've all said this verbatim, almost word for word, that their partner has brought more to the relationship than they ever could have imagined. That means more love, more caring, and it means that you're both willing to do some give and take. I mean, you're going to share common values, common morals, and there. And I'm not trying to build up relationships, extraordinary relationships, to be all rainbows, unicorns, and butterflies. It ain't going to happen, because we're all going to get into relationships that have problems. Life happens. Somebody loses a job, somebody gets sick, somebody gets a disease. Um, you know, uh, Family members die, and it puts stress on the relationship. So we want to make sure that when you're in that right relationship, that you're with the right person, because those stressors in and of themselves can cause relationships to fall apart. But when you're with the right person, they're going to be there to lift you up, to do the things they need to do to help prolong or to promote the relationship, to connect with you, to to strengthen you. You're each going to oh, I just had the word. It's another one of those senior moments. You're both going to enhance each other's lives, and and again, it's not it's there are going to be problems. Every relationship has them, but when you're in an extraordinary relationship, you learn how to work through those things. You learn how to communicate with each other. You learn how to deal with each other in a respectful manner. So anyway, I hope that's been helpful for you. And I thank you all, Donna, Kathy, Meredith, Suzanne, and who else was up here? Yeah, I think that's, and for everybody else that was online that didn't speak up, if any of you have any questions that you want to ask but we're a little too shy, shoot me an email. Just go to Rick Sodabeer, rick@ricksodabeer.com. My name's on the bottom of on the screen there, the correct spelling. And shoot me a question. I'm more than happy to help you. And the whole idea is to help as many people as I can to not make the mistakes that will cause another divorce, or or broken hearts from staying in the wrong relationships too long. It's life is too short, and once you're a midlife single, you're pretty much on that downhill slide. And not to be glib about it, but it's time is precious, and it's much in my opinion, it's much better to remain single and looking for your extraordinary relationship than it is to settle and be in a mediocre relationship for the next 20, 30, or even 40 years. It's just, let's not make those mistakes again. Let's not create a relationship or get into a relationship that's ultimately the odds are going to be against you. Let's set the bar high and make decisions that are in your best interest, not in anybody else's, not in your friends, not in who you're dating. It doesn't make any difference how good a person they are. If it doesn't feel right, if it doesn't feel like they're enhancing your life in any way, then it's not a good relationship. But if you have questions, shoot them to me. If you have ideas for subjects that you'd like me to cover in the future, shoot those to me. I'm always open to ideas. And any way that I can help you guys, let me know. That's what I'm here for. And that will wrap that up and for today. And I will see you. No, I will not see you next week. This was supposed to be a travel week for me, but I'll be on the road next week. So I will not be, I'll actually be in the dentist chair next week, next Monday. So, with that being said, I will see you all in 2 weeks. And in the meantime, have a great week. I love you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for commenting. And we'll see you again in 2 weeks.